And at Ray-Best Disc, performance, quality, and reliability are a part of every product.
Okay, now we have the K1 clutch drum here. We're going to disassemble it, inspect it, and put it back together. And let's just start by taking the snap ring out and the K1 clutches out. We've got one-sided clutches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Set those aside. Now, because they're one-sided clutches, these are going to get replaced, and there's no steels to reuse or refinish. Also, we have our cushion spring. The dish goes down on this one as well. You can feel it, the dish stays down. Okay, now we're going to use a suitable press to compress the spring retainer and remove the retaining snap ring. Okay, we've used our suitable spring press and we've taken out the retaining snap ring. Really simple, it's pretty flimsy retaining snap ring, so it's not real difficult. Now we're going to pull out the spring retainer and the return springs. Now, this can be a little tricky to get apart, but you want to be able to take that apart for cleaning. Anytime that we want to get severe metal out of here, we want to make sure we take that apart. There's also an O-ring that goes here. We want to remove and discard that when we're cleaning it. We'll be putting a new one there when we go back together. Now down in the piston, down in the drum I should say, is the piston. Just going to remove that out of there. Again, this is a molded piston. This one is not in good shape, but we're going to get rid of this and use a new one. The last thing we want to take apart before we start cleaning this thing up, there's a real flimsy bearing down here in this race that supports it on the stator. So we're going to take that out of there. If we can, there we go. Notice it's a real flimsy bearing cage that can blow out in the cleaning machine or possibly blow out when you're blowing it off with air. Now our drum is ready to be cleaned. Okay, we've got this out of the cleaning machine now. It's nice and clean, so we can inspect a few places on the drum. We want to check the teeth for cracked or worn teeth here on the sun gear. Back here in the back, we want to check where that small caged bearing rides so that we don't see any pitting or galling down in the race. We want to look deep down in here where the sealing rings ride and make sure that there's no grooves. Lastly, we want to take a look at the B2 clutch tangs right here, the teeth where the clutches ride, and make sure they're not chewed up so that the clutches will slide smoothly. That's the inspection of the K1 clutch drum. Okay, we've got all our drum cleaned up and all our parts inspected. Our clutches are soaking in some ATF right now as we put the clutch drum together. So let's get this piston back in here. This is a new piston. It's the highest quality that you can find. We're going to use that right now. I'm going to put that right down into the drum. Pushes down in there pretty easily. We've got our return springs and our retainer. We're just going to push that together here and snap into place. We've got our new O-ring here on the retainer we're going to put together. Nice and simple. We lube it up. Now we're going to set it down in there. Now we're ready to use that suitable press and put our snap ring back in. Before we put our clutches in, let's put a little lube in here and in the groove and install our support bearing back into the clutch drum just like that. It's nice and smooth inside of there. Now we've got our dish spring and it goes down in, and if you're having a hard time, you know, I just kind of feel it with both hands to see which way it goes. But here's another way to do it. You can take a simple straight edge and put it over the straight edge and look down in there. Now, if I look at it this way, I can see that the inside of the steel plate is not touching the bar. Whereas if I turn it over, now I can see that the inside of the plate is touching and the outside is not. So this way is where the dish goes down, and it goes down into the drum. Okay, we've got our clutches, our K1 clutches that have been soaking for 10 minutes. Remember, these are the single-sided clutches. We're going to load those up into the drum. Now we go on with our pressure plate, and finally our snap ring. Got our snap ring in here, and now we're going to use our feeler gauge to check clutch clearance. I'm going to slide that underneath there so you can see. I'm going to tilt that up so you can see it. This is how we're going to check our clutch clearance. Depending on the clutch count inside this drum, you're looking at anywhere from 2 millimeters to 2.8 millimeters. And it is adjusted by different thickness snap rings.